Hello everyone. Welcome to Less Lethal Options special report on the growing myths, misinformation, and misconceptions about less lethal devices and defense capability. We have our reporting investigators, Carlotta, Moses, and Carly, out in the field. We have footage from live events and interviews. Let's get started with Carly.
Hi, Mike. I am downtown at Happy Harry's restaurant and bar. I'm talking with David, who is a city office worker, about what he thinks about less lethal devices for personal and home defense. David, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think pepper spray is okay for a woman to carry. I, however, have a concealed carry permit.
Aren't city office buildings no firearms allowed zones?
Yes, so I leave my firearm locked in the trunk of my car while I'm at work. I don't need it at work anyway. I need it when getting my car to go home, especially in the winter when it gets dark early. I also sometimes stop at ATM machines on my way home, and I want to be prepared in case someone tries to rob me there or follow me home. There is also the possibility that some jerk may attack me due to a fender bender or some road rage incident. I respect you less lethal advocates, but there is no substitute for a firearm when it comes to personal or home protection.
Thank you, David, for your input. We at Less Lethal Options agree 100% that there is no better device for personal and home protection than a firearm. Our mission is to inform those people who won't own a firearm, for whatever reasons, how to select and initiate the best less lethal options. Even firearm carriers need to consider having a less lethal option to go with their firearms. An example would be you could be attacked while walking to your car or trying to get the firearm out from its hiding place. You also have to be careful when getting into a fight on the road or elsewhere about escalating the situation. If you pull a gun in a fist fight, you will likely be charged with assault, unless there are significant extenuating circumstances. Pepper spray might serve you better. Mike, I hope all of our less lethal users and advocates understand that less lethal devices are not a replacement for a firearm. They required a whole different game plan, with much more uncertain results. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Carly. We will get back to you later at your next stop. I would like to say to those with firearm permits, to remember that there are several confrontational scenarios where if you draw and or use your gun, you will become the criminal. We recommend you carry pepper spray. The argument against pepper spray is everyone is not affected sufficiently. There is also the blowback possibility. Both those criticisms are possible, but trying pepper spray first is often better than the alternative, which could be an aggravated assault or manslaughter charge. Next we will go to Moses, who is talking to some newcomers to the less lethal world. Moses, take it away.
Hi, Mike. I am on the terrace of the Casa de Vista with Tran and Maya. Maya, what motivated you to go the less lethal route for your personal defense?
Well, I believe in female empowerment, so it occurred to me that in these lawless times, I needed to ensure my own safety, as opposed to depending on someone else.
Tran, what about you? Why did you decide to go the less lethal route?
Well, I believe in the Second Amendment, but I personally didn't want to take a life, in terms of my personal defense. I also didn't want to be a passive victim. Less lethal devices seem to fit my objectives. I know they too can take a life, but it is a much less likely scenario that deploying a firearm. Less lethals also seem to make me anything but passive.
How far have you gone into less lethal self-protection? If we were to be assailed right now, out on this terrace, are you ready to defend yourselves?
I am concealed carrying, right now, a Byrna EP. I have it loaded with a mixture of pepper balls and kinetics. I was attracted to the Byrna EP model, because you get full power from the first squeeze of the trigger. The mix of chemical and kinetic projectiles gives me flexibility. The first 2 rounds are kinetic, which should stop the assailant's advance. If not, then I have 3 chemical rounds which should leave the assailant a blurry-eyed, coughing mess. I can do this at a 20-foot distance so the assailant never gets but so close, before retreating.
Well, I knew this was a pretty safe place, so, although I also have a Byrna EP, I brought only my pepper spray with me.
I have a few thoughts on your comments. Tran, where did you get the 20-foot distance from? If you look around this terrace, do you see anyone threatening 20 feet away or 15 feet for that matter?
No, but that's because no one is coming to rob us.
Except for an occasional mental case, no one is going to give you any warning about their intention to attack you. They will always try and catch you by surprise and get as close as possible, especially if they have a knife and not a firearm. We at Less Lethal Options don't recommend chemical projectiles for personal defense. They fit in better with law enforcement and security agencies. The problem is, unlike sprays or gels that you squirt directly onto someone's face, pepper balls explodes, and they don't always burst properly, giving off a stagnant cloud of chemical powder. If everything goes right and you hit your assailant a couple of times before he is on you, the cloud that is created stays wherever the chemical projectile burst. Like running past a series of sprinklers. You will get wet each time you encounter a sprinkler, but only from the current one, not the previous ones you have passed. Also, very little water may hit you in the face. Whereas someone with a water gun is shooting and hitting you with every shot in the face.
That's true, which is why I will shoot the assailant in the face.
There are two flaws to that way of thinking. The first is shooting chemical projectiles in the face might not cause them to burst because the soft tissue absorbs the impact. So once again, chemicals projectiles are a waste. Hitting the assailant in the face with kinetics will have the maximum effect. The problem is there is little chance that you will be able to do this. Assuming the assailant makes his intentions known 15 feet away, which is unlikely, you have 2 seconds to draw your burner and fire. Now a chemical projectile is just as likely to incapacitate you as the assailant. The burner EP doesn't have the power to make most assailants hesitate long enough for you to maneuver far enough away to avoid knife slashes and thrust so you can continue to fire. I would say 30 joules for the first shot is the absolute minimum. The burner LE is right on the borderline. Maya, I understand you're thinking in only bringing pepper spray to this environment. The truth is, however, you need to carry at least 2 different kinds of less lethal device, if legally possible. I am traveling light, like you with just my POM pepper spray, but I also have a pulse taser.
I am confused and somewhat deflated now. Should I buy a taser? What about my Berna EP?
Yeah, I am confused too. Are you saying less lethal can't really do the job? Should I get a Berna LE, or what?
I have been a little heavy-handed, but I really wanted to educate you on the serious problems of using pepper balls for personal defense. Check out our channel for 2 guides we have published. They are called Less Lethal Options Guide to Personal and Home Defense. The first is Book 1, and the second is Book 2. They reflect personal defense and home defense respectively. Between the two you should get all the information and insight you need to decide how you proceed from here. Use the comment section to ask questions or make comments. Remember, something is better than nothing. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Moses. I want to say that we at Less Lethal Options might seem a little too critical or pushy, but we think our message is usually worth the harsh methods. It is likely to be life-threatening for someone to think that they can buy XYZ less lethal device, put it in their pocket, bag, holster, etc., and think they are now capable of defending themselves. Equally troubling is the fantasy confrontation scenarios people come up with, where the assailants move like zombies, or cower from the pain of less lethal projectiles, whose energy is barely more than being hit by a paintball. I will stop my rant here and move on. Recently, Carlotta and I did a seminar of the reality of less lethal personal and home defense at the local college. The presentations were recorded and I am going to play them now. First up is Carlotta.
Hello everyone. My name is Carlotta, and I welcome you to the Less Lethal Options presentation of the reality of a less lethal personal and home defense. Let's start off with the most important point. Less lethal devices are not a replacement for a firearm. They are not equal to a firearm in their ability to protect you and yours. They are an alternative. To get them to be a sufficient alternative, you have to work on your personal and home defense plan. You have to understand the liabilities and limitations of the various less lethal devices. One of the things that new users of firearms and less lethal devices often have in common is the notion that having is all that is needed for protection. They often do not practice their draw, accuracy, or have mock drills at home. Having and not being able to get your weapon out in time, or not being able to hit your target, puts you in the same category as someone without a weapon. Perhaps even worse. One of the things that attracts many people to the less lethal alternative is the portrayal of people using less lethal devices, dispatching criminals with ease. With the right choice of less lethal device and the proper application thereof, you can hope to evade being a victim, but it's likely to be anything other than easy. Instead of expecting to dispatch the robber or attacker, you should think more in terms of getting away from the assailant, without them desiring to pursue. Less lethal devices, in general, do not have the ability to stop an aggressor in their tracks, like a firearm, except for the taser, which can work for a limited period of time. Less lethal devices work by delivering pain, chemical irritation, or electrical shock. If you are on the street, your main objective is to escape. If you are at home, your main objective is to prevent the intruder or intruders from getting to you or loved ones. My colleague, Moses, did a piece on the fantasy confrontation scenario. I will show a short clip to you now.
This is the fantasy situation that many less lethal launcher carriers are basing their defense. No criminal is going to warn you ahead of time by action, stare, the drawing of a weapon, etc., at a distance that allows you to charge your launcher, aim, and fire multiple projectiles at the assailant. The one exception might be a mental case homeless person, but there you would be better served to use pepper spray or simply cross the street. Another component of the confrontational fantasy is the 20-foot distance to the assailant fallacy. You see people practicing at targets 20 feet away, like an assailant would be stationary or even charging in a straight line. While we are talking about the adversary being 20 feet away, let's do a simulation of how long it would take the assailant to close on you from 20 feet away. Can you draw your launcher, charge it if not charged, aim, and hit the on-charging assailant in the face, and he has a knife? The video simulation was 2 seconds. Would pepper balls have a sufficient effect in those 2 seconds? Would pain stop the charge? Let's next look at a typical street robbery scenario and see what can be done with a less lethal.
Moses goes much deeper into the street scene reality. If you want a more in-depth look at using less lethal devices as a personal carry, see the Book 1 video of our guide on our channel. Now we are going to look at some real-life crime video, and I will comment from a less lethal relevant point of view. One of the intended victims is very alert to the strange car which has pulled up. It doesn't matter what the people in the car are saying, like asking for directions, etc. The intended victim is alert that something is about to go down. As a less lethal concealed carry, we have the same alertness requirement, but we would be at a severe disadvantage when the assailant emerges from the car with a gun drawn. This scene is a classic demonstration of how a less lethal can't replace a firearm. As less lethal carriers, we would have to decide to run, comply, or engage. If you engage, that would be very unwise. If you engaged with a low or medium-powered launcher, it would be a suicidal move. I am aware, in this particular situation, the robber was not interested in getting into a shooting match, only in escaping. So, yes, firing at the perpetrator with a less lethal launcher might have worked. Not the kind of odds you would want to play often, if ever. Firearm and less lethal carriers alike have to work on a fast draw. The prudent mantra is to never draw on someone whose gun is already out and pointing at you. The defender doesn't hesitate, and his draw is pretty fast. The defender, however, is lucky, because his draw wasn't fast enough that he would not have been shot by an assailant who was prepared to do so. If you carry a less lethal device for self-defense, you need to become just as fast or better than this defender. It's a game of seconds. The final thing we can learn from this video is the importance of accuracy. The defender was fast on the draw, but he didn't seem to be able to hit his target. For all those boasting how they will shoot someone in the face, think again. There are hundreds of videos with assailants, citizens, and law enforcement firing many rounds in firearm exchanges, and no one hits anybody. Even the ones where there is a hit, it is usually after several misses. Target practice is essential, but does not necessarily translate to what happens in the field. Confronting an assailant armed with a firearm on the street with a less lethal device is a fool's errand. That said, there are two less lethal devices that might allow you to escape unharmed. They are a taser or a powerful pistol-style launcher. I mention the taser only for its theoretical potential. You don't challenge someone with a firearm with a taser. A taser, however, if deployed properly, may stop the armed assailant immediately as they go crashing to the ground. Most of the data about tasers is from law enforcement deployments. The metric seems to indicate that they are effective about half the time. I don't believe that is indicative of the effectiveness of a taser by civilians against assailants. Law enforcement officers run into all kinds of perpetrators in various states of mental and physical agitation. The officers often deploy the tasers from their maximum distance capability. They sometimes are not well practiced because they have a firearm as backup, which is their main focus. They are more likely to try and deploy their tasers against people under mental duress or intoxicated via alcohol or drugs. All of these factors and others probably pulled down the taser's effectiveness stats. I carry a taser at all times when away from home. I will, however, be the first to admit that practice is expensive and not practical for most of us, so it is a crapshoot depending on one. A powerful, pistol-styled launcher, often called a marker, because of its paintball origins, can also stop an assailant abruptly. I am showing a pistol style because this presentation is about real-world encounters away from home, so the less lethal chosen needs to be concealable. The launcher shown is the Grimberg Gavel. I chose it because it is the most powerful launcher in its form factor that can be purchased ready to deploy without any modifications or tuning. I am going to show another video clip of two armed assailants attacking an armed defender and two bystanders. Then I will discuss the many lessons to learn from a less lethal point of view. If you choose a less lethal system for your protection, you have to be alert to your surroundings. Using your phone is about as unalert as you can be. I am sure the two bystanders have no idea that the guy they are talking to is going to be a target for a robbery or assassination. The defender is also phone-oriented. The defender, in fact, compromised his aim by shooting one-handed, not wanting to drop his phone in the left hand. The defender actually hit both assailants, but missed on the first shot. I would have to say that in his case, it was better to be lucky than good. One big plus about the defender is, he has a fast draw. This is something every less lethal carrier can work on. All you need is a mirror. If you develop a fast draw and aim two-handed, you have a good chance of hitting your target with the first shot in close quarters of 15 feet or so. No excuses. I have something more to say about the two bystanders. Running off is definitely the thing to do, but have some sense of your surroundings. One of the bystanders actually runs away in the same direction as the assailants on the other side of the street. That could have been catastrophic. The two assailants were both shot, one in the thigh, and the other, I believe, in the calf. Yet, you see that they were capable of fleeing the scene. The 9mm gives a lot of pain, but they are still functioning. If they had been shot with a less lethal projectile, there would have been even less incapacitated. They might at the point in the picture realize that the defender didn't have a firearm. They might go after the bystanders or rendezvous with the white car and continue the hunt. They were caught at a hospital. Not so, if their wounds were from a less lethal device. I am going to end on a very disturbing note, but one that reflects the real-world type scenarios and not the fantasy confrontations. I am afraid that many see a less lethal device quickly dispatching someone with a knife. This can and does happen, but only if the defender has the right less lethal or combination of less lethal devices for the job, and they can deploy them before the knife wielder gets too close. The video clip shows two men confronting each other. One is armed with a knife, the other is unarmed. The larger unarmed man doesn't have a clue as to the danger he is in. That was hard to look at, but there are plenty of lessons to learn. The unarmed man doesn't seem to understand that the guy he is facing has a knife. Or, I guess a more accurate thing is to say he has no clue as to how a seasoned knife fighter will behave. For a less lethal or even a firearm carrier, at the point where the video starts, your only hope is to back away or run away, if you can without being chased and overtaken from behind. No matter how fast your draw, the knife fighter will grab your drawing arm with his leveraging arm and start stabbing. You should never get into these kinds of confrontations. Take low, apologize, whatever. If you impulsively find yourself in such a confrontation, you should have your pepper spray in your hand. The moment you see a knife, you start spraying at the assailant's face until the canister is empty, while backing up or circling to get more space. Hopefully the pepper spray will diffuse the situations enough that you can escape the scene back to your car or wherever. If the knife wielder continues the aggression, then you should have put enough distance to draw your launcher and fire. Let me add one more thing about the clip we have just seen. It looks like the stabbed victim is up and okay. In the full video, he actually chases the man with the knife before succumbing to his injuries and expiring. In the picture shown, he is literally a dead man walking. Lots of times, you will see people walking around after a knife attack, unaware of their condition, until they bleed out. A skilled knife wielder is an extremely deadly threat. Don't ever let a knife wielder get close. Be alert. If a knife wielder does get the drop on you, comply, at least until you have a chance to ambush. That ends my presentation of the realities of a less lethal personal and home defense. Thanks for your attentiveness. I hope you got something positive from it. You have been great. Thanks again.
Wow, that was quite a presentation. I hope mine is half as good. My presentation focuses on less lethal home defense realities. I will play it now. Hello everyone. Thanks for the warm welcome. My name is Mike and I will be talking about the real-world realities of trying to defend your home with less lethal devices. On our Less Lethal Options channel we have a video guide on less lethal home defense. So, we won't be going over the same ground here. Instead, we will be taking real-life scenarios and analyzing them from a less lethal point of view. Our first real-life video has several messages for us to learn. That video clip was a good example of getting away with poor home defense preparation. It does, however, show a theme that will be true in most home invasion scenarios. If you meet the intruders with gunfire, they will almost certainly retreat, if robbery is their motive. That should alert us less lethal defenders that 1. Launchers looking like firearms is a good thing. 2. Make a loud sound when firing is a good thing, and 3rd. Our launchers should have enough power that if they hit an assailant, they will think that they have been shot by a firearm. This power requirement also carries over to misses. Misses should put holes in walls, shatter glass, splinter wood, etc. You want the assailants to think that you truly have a firearm. Projectiles bouncing off things is not the image you want. It may change fear to rage, with dire consequences for the less lethal defender. Let's get back to my first comment that this home defender was lucky even though he had an AR-15 style firearm. He was lucky because he had the time to retrieve his firearm before the criminals busted in. If they had busted in while he was looking through the door's peephole, things would have ended a lot differently. I am a firm believer that even at home you should conceal carry a launcher, or a taser at the very least. You can store launchers in every room, including the bathroom, but they won't be as accessible as a concealed carry. If you are forced by intruders to retreat to your safe room, the intruders may collect the weapons you have stowed away in each room and steal them, or use them against you. The next video clip also shows a home invasion, wherein the intruders make it inside and catch the defender in bed. There is usually strength in numbers, but sometimes it creates overconfidence. This home defender was obviously prepared, with a firearm within quick access to his sleeping position. The firearm by the door, however, could have easily been spotted by the invaders, and stolen, if not used against the home defender. The most important thing to note, however, is the choke point. The choke point is a place where the intruders will be most exposed, and have to traverse before they can get to you or family members. Hallways and stairways are the most common choke points. The choke point and the safe room are pillars of a less lethal home defense plan. We cover both in more detail in another video. See thumbnail on screen. With choke point like a narrow hallway, or stairs, the assailant or multiple assailants can't rush you from different angles. They have to approach one behind the other. This allows the defender excellent targeting opportunities, and likely hits. In warfare, choke points are often called killing zones, because of the defender's ability to exact heavy casualties on the aggressor, even when outnumbered and outgunned. When you have a firearm, like the defender in the video clip, you open up on the intruders, letting them know they would pay dearly trying to charge through a choke point. For less lethal defenders, it is much more problematic. The first problem is we have to hope that the intruders don't notice there is no muzzle flash, even though it sounds like a firearm. The second decision should be determined by whether there is one or two intruders or more. You may not know, which makes the decision even more stressful. The decision is whether to aim to hit the intruders or to miss. I know this sounds really strange, but here is the reasoning behind the decision. If you are pretty sure there's only one or two assailants. By the way, there are almost no one-man home invasions. There may be a lone burglar, but they are different. We will make the distinction after the next video clip. You will want to hit the assailant's eye on the upper torso or above. Your goal is to cause severe pain and enough damage to make them retreat, even if they suspect you have something other than a firearm. 3 or more assailants might require a miss. Like in the video we just watched, the moment the lead intruder saw the muzzle flash and gunshots, he turned and fled, with the others following. If he had been hit with a less lethal projectile, he might have seen the need to return a cover fire, so he could escape safely, thinking he was wounded. Even worse, he might see the less lethal projectile lodge in his skin or on the floor. He might relay this information to his cohorts and they may decide to engage in a firefight. Worse still, they might decide to shoot through the walls at the less lethal defender, knowing he can't harm them. If you fired several shots deliberately missing, the intruder in the video might have done the same retreat. He would maybe see a flash of the home defender with what looked like a serious firearm, hear what sounds like gunshots, hear what he thinks are bullets whizzing past him, just missing, and run. A less lethal home defender has to have ice water in their veins to face armed home invaders. If they are protecting more than just themselves, they need to seriously think about a plan B. This would mean having a more lethal backup. The best backup, of course, is a firearm. We at Less Lethal Options tailor our channel towards people who for whatever reasons can't or will not use firearms. The backup possibilities, in that case, could be a bow and arrows, crossbows, and high-power air guns. The next video clip catches a burglar in the act. I will talk about the differences between a burglar and home invader afterwards.
It's a man hiding behind a backpack and covered in what looks like a white sheet. Now see the thing he pushes on the floor? That's believed to be a Wi-Fi jammer to turn off the security cameras. Imran Ahmed and his family had just left their home in Queens Village. It was a Sunday afternoon. Fortunately for the suspect in Ahmed's house, this camera didn't need Wi-Fi to work. Seconds later, he tries to go out the kitchen, but the Wi-Fi reconnects.
The clip seemed kind of weird, but it has several points that are important to note. The burglar is semi-high-tech. He is aware of possible motion detectors, which can often be defeated by moving really slow. Going up the stairs seems like he is still in slow motion mode, but also might be concerned about possible pressure detectors under the stair pads. He knows the family has just left and probably has an idea of when they will return. He is a thief who never wants to confront or be confronted by the home occupants. He is unlikely to have a firearm, but may have a knife or tool that can be just as dangerous. You never want to sneak up on a burglar. They may feel cornered and turn and fight desperately, instead of running. If they sense you're coming, they might set an ambush. Burglars don't want confrontations, but can be very dangerous if confronted. The best policy is to stand your ground at the choke point and loudly announce your presence, that you have called the police, and that you will stop them if they try to advance. Burglars should not be confused with opportunist home invaders. These are people like hooligan teens, addicts, homeless predators, and mental cases. They will usually break in at night, when they think people are sleeping, or during the day if they think no one is home. They are encouraged usually when they think there is an easy way to gain entry into the home. They may have any kind of weapon, including less lethal devices. They will usually be alone or in pairs. Your plan is the same as with burglars. Stand your ground at the choke point, announce your presence, etc. There will be a greater desire to confront the opportunist home invader than the burglar. The reason is the burglar will flee when confronted, as long as you are not blocking their escape. They will take with them all the loot that they had collected before the point of confrontation. The opportunist home invader may continue to search for something to steal, even after being discovered. This may cause you to confront them and stop the looting of your possessions. It's your call, but, remember, using less lethal devices, there is no way of knowing what effect, if any, they will have. The next clip shows the worst-case scenario, in an opportunist home invader.
Walking up to their home.
And you see he's trying to either break the handle or knock on the door really hard.
The man stood at their back door, looking inside the house for several minutes before eventually banging on the glass door. That's when Mikas's husband walked out of their home and looked out the back door.
Right there, that's when he seen me. I seen the gun.
He said he found himself staring down the barrel of a gun before running back into the bedroom where his wife was on the phone with police. The man, still at the back door, then fires several shots into the home, including their bedroom and back door, shattering the glass.
You see how he just came into our house like it was okay.
Mikas says the man walked in and fired another shot into their bedroom before the gun appears to jam and he walks out of the house. Neither of the homeowners were injured. Meanwhile, their son was asleep in the bedroom right across the hallway. Mikas says he slept through the entire incident.
Folks, the best police force in the world, or Superman, or Spider-Man can't protect you from a home invasion. They will never get to you in time. This couple had cameras, but flimsy exterior doors, and no home defense plan other than to barricade themselves in the bedroom, leaving their child at the whim of an obvious mental case, or mindless brute. We believe in freedom of choice, including the choice to be a willingly victim. Our sole mission at Less Lethal Options is to show those who refuse or can't select the lethal option to self and home defense, there are alternatives. The brute or sociopath in that clip was scary, but more scary was the couple and their lack of responsibility for the welfare of themselves and their child. That hallway was a choke point. The safe room could be their bedroom. In which case, the husband should have gotten their child and taken him to their bedroom, no need to see who was at the door at all, just guard the hall with a powerful launcher. The wife should also have a powerful launcher. When the invader broke the glass and entered, the light in the hallway should be off except for a small light above the door. This will show the intruder as a silhouette, while the husband should be in the dark. You fire all the projectiles in your launcher, at the head, neck, groin, legs, whatever presents itself. The intruder is wearing a thick coat, so you look for more vulnerable exposed areas other than the center mass. Continuing this scenario is just pointless speculation. The point is the husband and wife should have a plan to defend their home. Whether they choose a lethal or less lethal system is their choice alone. This last video clip gives us a chance to reinforce the takeaways we hope you will think about as you develop or tweak your home defense plan and less lethal devices selections. The garage door was hacked. Never let your garage door be the only barrier between you and crooks getting in through the garage. Fortify the door leading from the garage to the house, and put an alarm on it. We advocate conceal carry at home if possible. This home defender was able to retrieve their firearm in time, but that is not guaranteed. Note that the lead intruder shot first, probably out of surprise at seeing the home defender standing at the top of the stairs with a firearm. They all ran when shots were returned. The defender was smart and did not try to follow them. As a less lethal defender, can we expect the same outcome? Maybe. Once again, the dilemma is to fire at the lead assailant or at the wall over his head. The problem is this. If you wound the lead invader, his whole demeanor and actions change. He is hurt, and the way to ensure you won't continue to be hurt or killed is to eliminate the threat. I would suspect he would empty his gun at the defender to end the threat, or, at the least, cover his retreat. If he is not wounded, like in the video, his instincts is to retreat before he gets hurt. The less lethal defender can never get into a firefight with assailants armed with firearms. They don't have to see you to kill you. They can shoot through the floor and walls. I want to end with a few recommended tenets. Never get in a firefight with crooks armed with firearms. It's better to create the illusion that you have a firearm than to inflict pain and damage through direct hits when facing armed home invaders. Basically, nothing in your house or apartment will be a barrier against a 9mm bullet or larger. Conceal carry at home if or when possible. Study our guides to less lethal personal and home defense, Book 1 and 2. Have a plan B if you initial less lethal devices fail to do the job. No one can or will protect you and your home better than you. Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate your attentiveness. You have been great. For our final segment, our reporters have returned here to the studio for a roundtable discussion on any less lethal topic. I will join them in a minute. Hello Carly, Moses, Carlotta. Glad you could make it. We are a very opinionated group. It should be an interesting session.
Hi Mike, it's good to be here.
Hey big guy, you are looking dapper.
Hi Mike.
Let's get started with each of you, and myself, making an opening comment. Carly, you kick it off.
Mike, my pet peeve is, although more women than ever are purchasing firearms, there are still way too many who are pursuing any type of personal or home protection at all.
I worry that law enforcement's use of less lethal devices has incorrectly been carried over to the civilian side. We make assumptions, use their statistics and results as a gauge to our personal defense success. This is wrong. The use of less lethal devices by law enforcement does not map to civilian use at all.
Well, for my opening remark, I will say, I agree with Carly, that too many women still depend on family members, husbands, boyfriends, the police, etc., for their personal safety, while all along talking about empowerment. I am very high on my pulse taser, yet tasers are said to be only 50% effective. As Moses said, that is because the metrics come from law enforcement. I will have more to say on this as we progress.
First of all, I agree with what each of you have said so far, but I am going to get into controversial elements. Chemical projectiles have little value in initiating a personal defense on the street or implementing a home defense plan. Chemical projectiles fit in only with law enforcement, the military, and security agencies. In this next round, each of you must play the devil's advocate and question everyone's opening statements. I will start it off. Carly, what if it's just women have more common sense than men, and don't think meeting violence with violence is a sensible solution?
That sounds like something you would hear at a wine and cheese party. This notion that being a victim is noble, and polite society never resorts to violence. Or shall I say, they believe someone else, other than they, should do the violence, like the police. This snooty, privileged attitude used to work when most Americans would not encounter violent criminals. Times have changed. From human trafficking to simple purse snatches. From sexual assaults to carjacking and domestic violence. Women are under siege. No one will save us, but us. Moses. Law enforcement is the principal users of less lethal devices. They have decades of experience and data on their effectiveness. There is nothing close in terms of civilian success rate data. It seems like any reasonable person would feel if it is good enough or not good enough for the police, it is good or not good enough for them.
I agree it makes sense for any reasonable person. The problem is the way law enforcement use less lethal devices is so different than the way civilians use them for self and home defense. We just can't their data as being the gospel for us. The police do not use less lethals on those attacking with weapons. They use lethal force. Law enforcement are the hunter, not the victims. They have time on their side. They can wait for less lethals to take effect. Most of the videos I have seen that show the deployment of less lethals by law enforcement show it often being done poorly. Carlotta, you have a lot of faith in the pulse taser, yet law enforcement statistics say it is only effective 50% of the time. What evidence do you have that their statistics are wrong?
I have no beef with their statistics, but what I can see, they botch a lot of deployments of tasers. I think deployed properly its success rate will be very good. I guessed it depending on a taser is religious. You have to have faith. Mike, the ingredients in pepper balls, especially the more severe versions, has been proven through actual human test to be effective. I know some people can fight through the symptoms, but they are the exceptions and not the norm.
The chemical properties of pepper balls is not the problem. I truly believe they will cause temporary incapacitating symptoms. The problem is the delivery method and exposure method. The pepper ball might not explode hitting something soft like loose clothing or human flesh. Even when it does, the so-called cloud it creates may or may not hit the face or eyes with enough irritant to cause incapacitating symptoms. There is no video on YouTube where a pepper ball is shot at a test volunteer who is moving at a rapid attack speed. They just stand still and inhale. I will continue later. In this next round, we in turn should describe what we would do in a robbery attempt where the assailant has a firearm, and then if the assailant has a knife.
If the robber with a firearm catches me by surprise, has his firearm out and looking at me, I comply. I give him my phone, bag, which might have my $500 launcher inside, and hope for the best. If the assailant has a knife, I have a 1-second draw with my saber pepper spray. As I moved and dodged his attack, I would keep in steady stream of pepper spray on the assailant's face. The first sign of them dropping their guard a little, or if I manage a little distance away, I would bring out my gavel, charge and fire the first 3 shots at high center mass. I would then run like hell.
If confronted by a robber with a firearm, I comply. If the robber has a knife, I will deploy my pepper spray, which almost certainly be in my hand, or a second away. I am not that nimble, but I think I can move around enough to avoid being cut. If the pepper spray has enough of an effect that I can back away and retreat, if not, I will bring out my taser. There would be no reason for the assailant not to break off and make an escape before the police arrive. If they won't break off, then I will shoot him with the taser and hope it works.
If someone gets the drop on me with a firearm, I will comply. If a robber comes at me with a knife, unless they get too close for me to try, I give them a steady stream of pepper spray as I try and back away to get out of range. If the robber is persistent, then I go for my pepper ball TCP launcher if I have it on me. The trick in dealing with a knife-wielding assailant is to not let them get their leveraging hand on you. This is the hand that does not hold the knife. If they get that leveraging hand on you, they will hold you in place as they stab you repeatedly.
Like everyone here, I comply when threatened with a firearm. For the knife wielder, I start with pepper spray and move quickly to my taser. I know to move and dodge any attempt for the assailant to get his free hand on me, or close enough that he can stop my draw of my taser. If the taser fails, I would try and get enough distance and time to draw and fire my Burna EP, which takes about 3 seconds. If the attacker is still in the fight, then it is not about robbery. It's now a life and death knife fight for me. The assailant has the knife and I have the taser in stun gun mode.
As I listen to you three, and even my own statements, it occurs that maybe we have concocted fantasy scenarios, just like everyone else. Let me show 3 brief video clips. 2 are on a knife-wielding robber. The third shows another more likely street robbery scenario.
Guys, it's almost 9 p.m. outside talking outside the grocery store when the dude comes up, pulls a knife out of his pocket and sticks it, not through the back of another guy, but threatens a guy with a knife in his back. Gets them both on the ground, and now he transitions.
I see what you mean. It's hard to get the concept that someone will approach in such a way that we won't have time to act.
Masked man leads her and her husband, Xiang Jin-ha, into the back of their hallway to rob them. Minutes later, their surveillance camera catches the suspect struggling with the 52-year-old man that he's held up, slashing his wrist. His 49-year-old wife then grabs a broom and starts beating the attacker.
I admire the couple for fighting back, but, in the end, the man was cut on the arm and stab, and the robber got away with money and jewelry.
If the woman had a launcher, taser, or even pepper spray, she could have done more.
These predators, roaming our streets at will, make me so angry.
They sprint back to their Honda. They rob a couple, a 32-year-old woman and a 48-year-old man, pummeled. They had debit cards and $1,000 cash.
Well, it is clear, we all need to rethink our personal defense plans. Being more alert, and having some empty-handed fighting skills, are things that come to mind. Speed of deployment, and perhaps a change as to which less lethal devices we should carry are also considerations. It will be interesting to see what changes we come up with, if any, the next time we discuss our individual personal defense plans. For now, however, we have to move on. This next segment, I am going to call pain, pepper balls, and projectiles. Less lethal devices hope to be successful by giving pain or temporary incapacitation. And thus, urban legends are born. Pain compliance is a very sketchy attribute to base one's personal welfare on. The most common vindication for pain as an assailant stopper is the phrase, "I wouldn't want to be hit by that." The phrase is usually spoken after their launcher has put dents in pans, cookie sheets, busted coconuts, watermelons, etc. I have seen .43 caliber launchers, which are little more than glorified BB guns, touted to have the power to crack the human skull. Anyone want to chime in on pain as a reliable deterrent for personal or home defense?
I am a case study for believing in the fake news and urban legends regarding what I have now come to understand are weak launchers. Even worse, I accepted as the gospel the defense of the weak launcher by the seemingly reasonable solution of just shoot the assailant in the face. All the video you see showing actual street crimes show it questionable whether you could even get a launcher out in time, least alone be able to shoot the assailant in the face. I know that if I stay less lethal, I have to get a more powerful launcher that can do enough physical damage for me to escape.
I knew the most popular launcher line wasn't going to make me feel safe. I purchased the most powerful concealed carry launcher on the market that required no modification. There seems to be no universal agreement on what amount of power in joules is required for a headshot to be lethal. The one chart that seemed the most reasonable to me had 12.5 joules can cause unconsciousness. 20 to 25 joules can cause a concussion. 40 joules or more can crack the human skull. My personal carry launcher's first shot is consistently 35 to 36 joules. I wanted the power to crack ribs, or cause rapid severe bruising, such that the very nimbleness and mobility of the assailant would be throttled down, even if they could take the pain of the blow. Depend on pain alone? Not this girl.
I agree with you, Carly. I want to do more to the assailant than for them to just say ouch. Moses, you have been quiet. I know you have plenty to say about the next topic, pepper balls. The floor is yours.
Pepper balls were probably the catalyst that jump-started the whole less lethal industry. They were widely accepted by law enforcement around the country. This is all good, because I definitely think there are special use cases where using pepper balls is a good option for law enforcement. This is the background for the urban legend that pepper balls are useful for personal defense. Urban legend grew to become fake news as often ridiculous fantasy scenarios were used in advertising and by YouTube content creators that validated the effectiveness of pepper balls against an assailant. The very nature of how pepper balls work prohibits them from being an effective personal defense weapon. It requires a stagnant or confined target, where the target has to eventually breathe in or deal with chemical irritant on their skin. It is pot luck whether the pepper ball will explode and release its chemical irritants. Soft surfaces like loose or thick clothing and human flesh may retard the pepper ball from exploding. The next variable is what the pattern of the cloud of powder will be. Only a portion of the cloud, if lucky, will blow onto the face of the assailant. This is true even if you hit the assailant in the face. Pepper balls have the same type of chemical mixtures that are found in pepper sprays. It is pretty well documented that the debilitating symptoms of pepper sprays may not take effect for 10 to 30 seconds, or longer, or, if at all. Pepper sprays are shot directly on the face. Most brands can provide about 10 seconds of continuous stream. You don't have to be as accurate to hit the target as with a pepper ball projectile. Pepper balls only have one advantage over pepper sprays. They have a kinetic factor that can cause pain. Everyone has been told to fear the possible blowback of a pepper spray in windy conditions. Strong streams from today's top pepper spray brands, especially those using a gel, makes that less likely than in the past. Furthermore, exploding pepper balls create a light cloud of dust-like particles, which is much more likely to blow back towards the shooter than a much heavier water-based or gel-based spray. Finally, pepper sprays can be easily concealed, carried, accessed, and deployed, better than a pepper ball launcher. Pepper balls are not useful for personal defense.
Thank you, Moses. We all concur. Next time, however, tell us how you really feel about pepper balls. The last topic is projectiles, or more specifically, kinetic projectiles for less lethal launchers. I will start it off by saying in the home, I feel you can take more liberties than what you conceal carry on the street. I use only Joule V2s in my TCP launcher when I conceal carry away from my home. Even at home, I don't use shaped projectiles, because of the likelihood they will jam.
Mike, I use the Joule V2 projectiles also because my launcher was designed to shoot them. They also have good weight and therefore hit hard. Some municipalities have specific laws or biases against launchers that shoot metal projectiles. The composite makeup of a Joule projectile eliminates that worry. I use PVC-covered steel balls in my HDP-50s. They are primarily metal, but the covering makes them look more like an airsoft BB. I use my HDP-50s in my home only, so I don't expect any fallout about the projectiles.
I also use Grimberg Joules in my TCP and gavel launchers. I also use PVC-covered steel balls in my HDP-50, even though I conceal carry it away from home. To me, shaped projectiles mean jamming and potential legal problems. That said, I would consider them for home defense if the revolver-styled launchers were my weapon of choice.
I didn't know anything about gels, projectile weight, etc. when I made my less lethal choices. I was looking for rapid deployment and the Byrna EP fulfilled that goal. Now I know, pepper balls are not really useful for my personal defense. Also, the EP power and lightweight kinetic rounds is not enough to stop a determined attacker. I am reevaluating my personal conceal, carry approach. At home, my husband and I use aluminum balls in our enhanced Tipman TIPX launchers.
This roundtable discussion has been very insightful, but we need to go deeper. Unfortunately, time has run out for this session. I need to get back to my desk and wrap up this special report. I thank you all for coming and sharing.